Hey, what's up everybody? So you might be looking at this going, that's not Guild Wars. Truth is, yeah, I do in fact on occasion play other MMORPGs. I know, gross. But while Guild Wars 2 will always be my forever home, I like to revisit the other big MMOs when their expansions drop, just to see what's going on in their neck of the woods. I finished Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker in the last few weeks of 2021, and so naturally, in the last few weeks of 2022, I decided to return to the World of Warcraft with Dragonflight. Even though I've not logged in much recently due to other games, I really only have fond memories of Dragonflight due to the gorgeous zones, the enjoyable main quests and charming side quests, the massive cooperative events, and the overall chill, cozy vibe of the whole thing, and most importantly, its focus on horizontal progression. So, is Dragonflight as good as they say? Would this expansion appeal to you even if you've never gotten into WoW before? Hopefully, I'll be able to answer these questions for you from like a semi-casual perspective. You know, if you're someone like me who just jumps in with each expansion and then plays for a few patches and then dips out. Let's talk about why you might want to play Dragonflight and WoW in general in 2023. So we'll start with the story, and you know, it exists. It's easy to follow, but I did find it overall unremarkable. I mean, it's quite a basic, hammy plot from what I understand. An ancient evil returns, and you need to collect the Infinity Stones or whatever to restore balance or something. Keep in mind, though, I'm not super plugged into the Warcraft lore, so the best thing I can say is that it's just a real classic fantasy adventure filled with dragons and centaurs and all sorts of fantasy creatures. And with the absolute nonsense that transpired by the end of the last expansion, this is definitely a welcome change of scenery for sure. One thing I can say is that the character animations were quite well done. This is definitely more what I'd expect out of Blizzard given their pedigree, so it was nice to see Blizzard's animation team able to flex their creative muscles here and elevate these performances. Another positive is that I think there's a lot less collectathon quests, particularly during the main story, because these have mostly been relegated to side quests. In general, the objectives just make sense within the context of what's going on, with neat little optional objectives too. So like there's this part where you're helping the centaur set up camps along the plains, and you can either fly straight to each point, or you can just join their convoy and take in the sights while they tell all these centaur stories. One part that jumped out for me was this section where you go through some crazy time travel shenanigans and travel to a timeline dominated by murlocs, and you run like the Flash through different time periods, and yeah, just awesome. So while the main story didn't leave any lasting impression on me, the missions were engaging enough, and the leveling experience as a whole was just a very pleasant time. Side quests are really fun and diverse. I can't remember the last time I cared about World of Warcraft side quests. I did so many of them in Dragonflight. I don't mind some of the more collectathon questing here because it's totally voluntary. It's not screeching your main story to a halt to do these random unrelated side bits. The stories they tell are super wholesome and interesting. Standouts in particular are the Taivan questline with the centaur, where you try to train a hunting dog, but he's not very good at it, and eventually he becomes like a rescue therapy dog, and the reward is just rep and a whistle to spawn the dog whenever you want for some pats. There's a great quest where you just sit and talk with a dwarf. Not much to say about this quest. Everyone said what they needed to say already. It's a good quest. Talk to the dwarf. There's a mammoth massacre that occurs, and so you help the Tuskar in building a boat with their remains to honor them and appease the fishing spirit or some shit, and then you go on a rapid river ride, and if you catch enough fish, you get this little boat to help you out with fishing. I've never enjoyed side quests this much in WoW, so this is very much a standout feature for me. I'm just having a straight up good time coming upon these. They're not marked on your map until you get close enough, so you really are encouraged to just go out and explore to find these little side stories if you so choose. World quests are fun too. There's one where you just kill things, but they drop random roguelike powers, like putting lava everywhere you walk, so you need to keep moving, or turning your map into a bomb that deals massive damage, or kills you if there aren't enough enemies around. It's like Torghast, except not shit. Now, world quests aren't new for WoW, obviously, but there's a level of large-scale cooperation here that I don't think the game has ever done before. The Centaur hunts, the Tuskar Soup Feast, and especially the Siege on Dragonbane Keep. These are all just massive cooperative events that take place on a 2-hour rotation. Yeah, if you're a Guild Wars 2 player, that probably sounds very familiar. But yeah, very rarely does WoW actually feel like an MMO outside of main cities and large-scale raids. So it's great to just embrace the chaos every once in a while of seeing all these players joining up during these events out in the open world. As such, I found Dragonflight to be a very social experience. I really don't recall organically playing with this many players on such a regular basis like this in any other expansion. Dungeons are great. Not much to say here. I mean, I always enjoy WoW dungeons generally, but yeah, there's some cool mechanics going on here. I don't have a lot of footage of my dungeon runs, but in particular, one of the early ones is like a fully open world zone where you can approach each boss from any angle. This isn't a new concept for WoW, but I found it really interesting since dragon riding is now a thing, and it's encouraged here. But on the topic of dragonflying, let's talk about that. So, is it just budget griffin riding in Guild Wars 2? Yes, kind of. It definitely lacks the feel of momentum, the animation blending that Guild Wars 2 has. You know, it's still got that very fast, snappy WoW feel, but I think that's fair enough. It fits with the game. I mean, it's definitely more engaging than the usual flying system, and I really loved collecting all the little mastery points to upgrade it further. I really wasn't expecting that. And the customization. Oh my god, this is all I've ever wanted in an MMO. I love me some dragons, and being able to earn new customization options has been really seamlessly integrated into the reward systems of Dragonflight. I'll talk about that more in a second, but yeah, overall, Dragonflying definitely feels at home here. It's a really welcome addition to the game, and I pray it's a feature that sticks around for future expansions and gets built upon and not completely deleted. Don't delete Dragonflying. Now, more importantly, Dragonflying has had a really tangible impact on the leveling experience and level design. You can zip from quest to quest with ease. The new zones are just humongous and stunning, and you can fly between them seamlessly as opposed to the Oribos airport in Shadowlands. And because you can basically fly from the get-go, the maps are designed with verticality in mind. So there's all these little secrets and mini events and resource nodes all hidden up high or in little nooks within mountains. The sheer size of the maps as well means everything's a little more spread out, so you're not in aggro range of a mob every time you want to do some inventory management. The music, the art, and the general ambience gives this really cozy vibe while you're questing. There's no other way for me to describe it. It reminds me of those chill moments in like Valheim where you're chopping wood and putting your house together while the sun is setting and the serene music is playing in the background and you're just vibing out. That is the feel that I got from Dragonflight questing. The profession rework is great. I have literally never engaged with WoW's crafting or gathering systems at all to this point, but now I'm like skinning everything, and every dungeon I do or big world quest that doesn't drop me a gear piece I want drops me some materials that gets me closer to just crafting the gear upgrades myself. The process involved with crafting gear is really well communicated, I think, with a nice UI, nice tutorialization, and it gives you all the info you need to learn to craft effectively. I've been using it to fill gaps in my gear when I can't be asked to leave it up to RNG, which feels to me like the whole intention behind crafting. And yeah, it feels very intuitive, very easy to keep track of, and work toward the crafts that you're going for. Another bonus of professions and dragon customization is that I feel like they've helped to fill the loot pool, making everything feel more rewarding even if you don't get the thing you wanted. Even if you don't get that gear piece, you get crafting materials, you get new dragon customization options, just nice little unlocks that make you walk away feeling a little more rewarded for your time. You also get a lot of extra items that you can hand in for bonus reputation with the factions, which leads to even more cosmetics. Yeah, overall, there's clearly an emphasis on horizontal progression with this expansion. This is a trend that we've seen with a lot of MMOs lately, Lost Ark and Final Fantasy XIV to name a couple. And here with Dragonflight, you've got the rep cosmetics, the dragon riding points, dragon riding customization, hidden toys, collectibles, etc. The vertical progression has been eased off quite a bit in my opinion, all for the better. I mean, world quests are only refreshed every 3 or so days now, and high item level drops have been spread to more open world events like rare mobs and world events. I basically got to the required item level for normal mode raiding from just like general open world questing, barely having done any sort of farms or dungeon grinding. As far as raiding goes, I did a little bit of normal mode progression before the new year where I discovered that I am shit at the game. This is basically the first time I've done any non-LFR raiding, and at times I felt like a blind lemming, but needless to say, I did have a very fun experience. This is a very well-designed raid. The spectacle was great. The bosses are quite creative and intuitive. A major highlight for me so far was the giant ice spider with the slip and slide mechanics, where you're constantly fighting while also chasing her up the cavern, using the webs to negate the sliding and using the poisons to cleanse the webs, and it was just all a very good fight. The other bosses I've done were also a great time, and I'm very keen to experience the others either through more normal progression or through LFR. Random thing, but obviously the Great Vault introduced in Shadowlands returns here, meaning that even if you don't get any drops during your raids, mythic dungeons, PvP, etc., you'll still be able to cash out at the end of the week with a selection of high item level gear depending on how much you did that week. And yes, this also includes the sexy tier set gear. It's a great system, arguably the only good system to come out of Shadowlands, so it's nice to see that return here. Lastly, I'll talk about the thing that got me really enjoying WoW again. One thing that has completely changed the game for the foreseeable future above all else. Talent trees. My God, these are excellent. Now, I don't have a lot to say on these because I definitely don't consider myself enough of a high-end player to deep dive on this, but I will say this is hands down one of my favorite additions, and it's not even technically part of the expansion. This has single-handedly revitalized like every spec in the game for me, at least for the classes I've played. Even though there's no new spells, just having the agency to tailor your playstyle how you want feels great. You've got some actual build craft going on. You get to engage your brain. I feel like these trees are quite well designed too, filled with so many side grades, and I think it'd be really hard to totally mess up your choices. There's some Covenant skills in there, Legion artifact and Azerite abilities are peppered in there. It really feels like a greatest hits of all these systems, and as a result, it feels better than like all of those things combined. But the best part, I think, is that this improves not just the seasoned player experience, not just the end game experience, the build crafters, the mythic raiders and whatnot. It really, really helps to make the leveling experience so much more rewarding. For once, I'm actually excited to start a brand new character, slowly building an understanding of their talents as I level and engaging in that build craft all over again. So, in summary, yeah, Dragonflight is excellent. I think there's this sentiment among MMO players outside the WoW sphere that the game is super unfriendly to casual players. It requires a lot of time investment and grind and optimization, only for all that work to be wiped with the next expansion, or if you want to make an alt, you've got to go through all that stuff all over again. And while I'm sure that's still true to some degree, I do think most of the things added to Dragonflight are fundamental changes to the game moving forward. Yes, maybe you can argue that there's no, big expansion selling feature with Dragonflight, but I gotta say, every new system here is a resounding success. Things that make WoW feel more contemporary and pleasant to play at your own leisure, as opposed to all the mandatory throwaway shit that has come before. If WoW hasn't clicked for you before, then I can't guarantee that it'll click for you now, but it is way better, to the point that I feel like I can actually comfortably recommend it to people, whether you're new to WoW or even if you're just new to MMORPGs in general. In fact, I dare say it's one of the easiest MMOs to get into these days, what with Exile's Reach, Chromie Time, and LFR, but yeah, that's a whole other video. I don't know yet if this is just another honeymoon period and I'll be tapped out by the second or third patch as usual, but what I can say for certain is that so far, it's the best WoW expansion in like half a decade, and I've had a really good time with it. Feel free to like the video if it was helpful, subscribe for more MMO stuff, and thanks as always for watching. I'll catch you later.